In this video, I'm going to show you how I used OpenAI, PostMan, and a simple web application that I have here to load data from a website scrape into that system. So let's just walk through it. So we have a system. It's called Speed to Lead, and in this system, we have the ability to set up these campaigns. And with this particular campaign, I want to load up information about companies that I want to communicate with as a part of this campaign. And again, that part is irrelevant sort of to the process. I'm only showing this to say that the data from the Postman request, API request, will come into this system. So we'll see it here in a moment. But I start out by taking a look at a website that has some information on it. It has architecture firms here listed. And what I want to do is grab these architecture firms from this site and generate some JSON data that I can use in Postman as a part of my execution. So the first thing I'll do is just load the website up. I'll do a inspect. And from there, you'll see that I have this table. I take this table and I'm just going to grab the body of it. I'm using Chrome Developer Tools, obviously here. Copy element, and then I'm going to open up a text document in VS Code. I'm going to paste that data into it. So now I have this effectively a website scrape, and it contains just a big table of information about architecture firms in the United States. So what I want to do is I want to have OpenAI take this data and convert it into JSON so that I could use it in my Postman script. So the first thing I'll do to do that is I'll save this file into a text file. So file save as. And I'm going to put it into this folder where I have all of my prompts. So obviously, if you know OpenAI, you have to generate prompts that you send over through the API and have that prompt generate a completion. Have the API generate a completion from the call. So we'll call this website scrape test. And this is a text file. All right, so I have this text file. It's a website scrape. It's right here. And so I want to start out by, this file is ultimately going to be part of my prompt. And so I'm going to go ahead and add some space at the top. I've already done this before, so I've already created a prompt from the previous run. I'm going to take this, copy it to the top. As you can see, it says, the prompt is very simple. It just says that, hey, you have some information from a website. It's HTML. It's about architecture firms in the United States. Please review the website data provided and structure the content so that it can be processed by another system. The system requires a JSON file. I'm going to say a little different here. I'm going to say the system performs an API call and requires a JSON file. Your output should present the data as a JSON array of objects with the following information. So the things I want to grab from this data are going to be the business name, website address, city, state, zip. Now, my API call takes a lot of other information in addition to that. It takes a contact ID. It also takes and because this system is generating a chatbot effectively, it also takes a persona. Now, I'll go over in a moment how I did this. You could, in your system or in your requests, also say, we can call this like contact name, and then we'll give it, we'll tell it to a random generated name, first name, person. All right, there we go. And then we'll say, there's one more thing we want to say. The website scrape is provided below. So we'll grab that. There's that. And there's our content. So we have the prompt. The prompt tells the system tells the model what I want the structure to be like when it generates the data. And then I tell it that, this is the actual scrape from the website. All right, so thankfully, the model is smart enough to know how to read HTML. Matter of fact, one thing I'm also going to do is remove the table body, start and finish, because that kind of just any extraneous information you want to remove. All right, here we go. Save that. And then I have a script that I always use. It's a Python script that really, I use it for everything to process all my prompts in this way. And so it's a very basic script. It has, I take my API key for OpenAI and I put it on the environment. Of course, you do that by doing export, OpenAI key, and you'll hit, whatever that key is, right? And you'll store that in your environment for use in this type of a system. So, and then I have a location of the file that I'm going to read. In this case, we created a new one, so we'll change this to website scrape test.txt. And again, I'm not going to go over all the details of this file, but suffice to say that there's a process where it reads the file, just takes the content in, very straightforward. All right. And then there's a thing here where I replace any expression language that's in the file. So some of my files that I have will have some expression language in it. And so what this logic tells the system to do, or this script to do, is to replace whatever that expression language is with the term that's in the replacement. All right. And then there's the main method, which actually down here calls generate completion, which is this one. Generate completion will simply read the file, generate an array of messages, which in my case is only the system message, which includes the content that was read from the file. I set a temperature of 0.7. I don't give a max tokens, and I set the frequency penalty at 0. All these details about how you set these can be found on the website for OpenAI, or whatever API you're using for LLM access. And then of course we give it the required parameters. Again, these parameters are unique to OpenAI, so again, you'll change these based upon what your API would be. And then I'll just get the message off of that. Now in my case, I take that message and I store it into a file. As you can see on the left here, these are all the files that have been processed in my testing. It'll take that content that came out of the completion, and it will open a new file. It adds a little date timestamp at the end of it. That's what this does. And then it writes the data that came off of the completion into the file. So very simple. Again, this is a generic script that I created for these purposes. And now that I've changed the file name, I'm going to save it. And then I have a debug script set up. You can just run it directly, but I'm going to just run this file now. All right, so again, what's happening is it's taking that prompt that's in this file, it's reading it in, it's sending it over to OpenAI using the model settings and configuration that I gave it, GPT-4 0125 preview, and then it's going to generate a JSON file that I can then use in PostMan to run some tests or to populate my database. So we'll let this run. Just a quick point. You don't have to have all these complicated things in your file. You don't need to have this replace expression stuff in here. Again, as you can see in my case, I actually have commented it out because in this particular run, I don't do any replacement. But if I did do that, if I wanted to do some expression language replacement, after I read the file into this variable, I would then do a replacement of whatever the expression was at this level, and then just keep doing that until you've replaced all the expressions that are needed. Another thing to note is that, again, in the case of OpenAI, I'm only sending over this one system prompt, which is this role system content, whatever that was. But if you want to add some additional, assistant messages, some content from a user, you can add that as well. But all right, so the file's done. Here it is here. Open it up, and you can see that prompt caused it to generate this file. Looks really good. Here's my business name. Again, it structured the data exactly the way I wanted. And then, of course, it puts these delimiters here indicating that it's a JSON file. What I like to do is just delete that, just because if I'm going to read this in, it kind of throws things off. And I'm going to save this and rename it. Here we go. So now we have a JSON file that we can use. Now we want to jump over to Postman. Here we are. So first thing you want to do is create a project in Postman, or collection in Postman, by going over and just clicking on Create New Collection. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. You create a new collection. You add your you add a new request. In my case, I'm adding a post request, and it is set up with a bunch of different things. I got parameters. In this case, I got an account ID. I got an authorization. In this case, it's an API key. I don't care you see this because this is my local host, so I'm using Grok. So it doesn't matter if you see that because it doesn't mean anything. I have headers, which are not really important. This is all preset. These are pulled in from the settings that I gave it, and these other things are all built in, so I don't change those. But the thing I do care about is the body of the message. Now, based upon my system that I'm integrating with, you'll see that there's an API for it, and the API tells me that if I want to create a chat manager, or an assistant or a chatbot, I'm going to add these parameters as a part of my query. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of this. Just know that when I created this body of this message, it has all those things in it. Now, in addition to that, I created a new run. So I had in other words, I want to go to here. I want to do run collection. Okay. And that opens up my runner. This is what this is. I click run manually. I'm going to only run this one request or query, this one post request. And I'm going to choose the file that has the data in it that I'm going to pull from. I've already done that before, but you can see that it pulls that data in. I can preview it. I see that here are my the iterations. There are 20 documents in this file, or 20 records in this file, on that array of JSON objects. It has all the data associated with it that I'll need for the inputting into the request. And then, so I just want to make sure that's previewed correctly. And from there, I don't have to persist the responses, but that is that. So the next thing I want to just confirm is that that data is what I saw. Just confirming that just one more time. All right, there's my campaign data. And again, you can see the keys here. These are the attributes that will be added into the request. So I go to the request, and then I start populating those values. So their business name is there, the campaign key, the website, all these different things get populated. Now, there's a few other cool things that Postman allows you to do. You can actually, now in my case, I remember I added that persona into the file directly. I had OpenAI generate that. Remember in this thing where I said, in the website scrape, I said, a randomly generated first name of a person. And so it did that for me. You can go back and take a look. it created like some names: Jordan, Taylor, Alex, Casey. You can also do that with Postman. You can tell it to generate a random first name. You can also tell it to produce a random, I need to put this in quotes, by the way. You can also add to say, these are all the random things that you can do. Random avatars, images, colors, city images, all the types of things you can create, which is really, really awesome. But I'm going to just do random first name. And another random thing that I did was I generated a random color, because in this widget creator, or in this chat bot creator, we can set the widget color, which is that there. Okay, now that I have that all set up, I can then execute this as part of my run. So let's go back to the run. I'm gonna have to actually, looks like I need to recreate it because I closed that tab. Run collection. And again, we've already done this, so I'll just do it again. Here's my data. This is the file. I'm gonna preview it. Here are my data elements. And I named them using like the underscore approach there. And again, we have it all set here. So I'm just going to execute this thing. Let's run it. Run the campaign. All right, there it is. All right, so it ran it. As you can see, it executed all of them. All of them came back with a response, okay. And if I go back to my system, here's a system here. Refresh this page. All right, there we go. So here are all of my, of course, as I said, you can disregard what this system is. Just know that when I submitted that request, and you can see I actually did it twice. That's why it's got two entries of the same thing. But as you can see, I created my my chatbots, or my chat manager instances, and it used the API. It worked really well. Again, just in summary, we started out by going to a website. We grabbed the data. We put the data into a file that was really the scrape of the rows in the file, and then we gave it a prompt to say, pull this JSON data out of the unstructured, relatively unstructured data, semi-structured, semi-unstructured data, and then give me back a JSON array that represents what's in that website, which is what it did. And then after doing that, we looked at it, reviewed it, we pulled it into Postman by creating a collection. We started a new run, run collection. We pointed it to the data from the file. And again, I'm not going to do the whole thing over again, but that is it. Hope that helps you know how to use Postman with an API and OpenAI to populate a system. Carry on.